Hey guys, thank you all for tuning in. It's Trade with Ellie, all things trade, travel, and investing related. I've been getting tons of questions about travel insurance, how to find the best travel insurance, where to look, getting the cheapest travel insurance, getting insurance that covers, everything that you need in your policy, and more importantly, getting COVID coverage, which is super important because a lot of countries are actually requiring you to have not only travel insurance but to have COVID coverage. So I've done all the work for you. I found the best place for you to find this. I've used this on my last trip. It made it super easy for me to find the best policy for me and to find one within the budget that I wanted to spend and that would cover everything I can possibly think of. And so I'm going to walk you through all these steps. But first and foremost, I want you to go into my description and I want you to click the link, right, travel insurance link, so that it can take you out to the proper site and I can walk you through it along with me. So you can either, use the same example I used for my trip, or you can simply put in your next trip or your potential trip just to see what that cost may look like or how to find it. And so that way we can do it together. So make sure to click that link and then press play. To Trade with Ellie, all things trade, investing, traveling related. I've been getting many questions about travel insurance, the importance of travel insurance, what kind of travel insurance to get, and more importantly, which travel insurance actually includes COVID, right? COVID-19. So a lot of countries are requiring for you to have insurance when traveling there. So your private insurance that covers you in your hometown might cover you only in your state. It may cover you across the United States, but it may not cover you when you are international. And that's where travel insurance comes in. But remember, travel insurance isn't just about health. It's also about any disruption that will occur along your trip. And so being that COVID is still very rampant, is continuously changing, mutating, and you just never know what's going to happen, and you need that negative test to fly. The worst case scenario is you test positive and you're stuck for a few more days in that country, and you may or may not have enough money, or you may need to, have a doctor's visit, whatever the case is. And if you don't have travel insurance, it can cost you a lot. So travel insurance works like any other insurance, right? It's there for emergency purposes, anywhere from, your flight being delayed, from flight switches, baggage loss, baggage delay, if you get sick, if you get injured, so on and so forth. So if you've checked out my previous video on why travel insurance is important and why it's a necessity, especially now, then you are up to date and understand. If you haven't, watched that video first and come back here. But in this video, which I didn't do in my other one, was really break down what to look for or how to really find the insurance that's best for you. So I'm going to put the link in the description box below. I want you to click the link in the description box for your travel insurance quotes, so therefore you can follow along with me very easily. So right here, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be putting in the date of your trip, right? So it doesn't matter how soon it is or how late it is, right? So I'm going to just leave these dates in, and then you can put in your main destination. So I'm going to put Italy just for the simple fact this was the last trip I did, and I actually use this step to find the insurance for that. So we're going to click to step 2. And so it's going to ask you, right, the country of residence. You're going to put your country and you're going to put your state. I'm New York, so that's what I'm going to put. I'm a United States citizen. And so clearly when I was going on my trip, it was my sister and I, so we put 2. It's going to just be me, so I'm going to put that. And you're going to put your age. So your age will reflect the number of people that are going, will reflect what you want on your insurance, will reflect in the costs, right? And the things that are being covered. So cancellation coverage, yes, cover my trip costs, right? That's what we want. We want to cover the trip costs. So it's going to ask us trip cost amount. You want to be honest about what your trip cost amount is, because in the event you need to be refunded your whole entire trip, you're going to be mad that you shorthanded yourself because you didn't want to pay a high insurance quote just so that you can be covered, because once again, right, the chances are really 50-50. The odds is really slim to none, but you never know. So if your trip costs 2,000, put that. If it costs 2,000, put that. If it costs 1,000, put that. I'm just gonna put 1,000. Just so that you can see, right? And so when you're putting that, you're putting total cost for flight, hotel, everything that you pretty much already booked towards your trip. So mainly flight and your room booking, right? And if you've already purchased activities and stuff, I would say add it. You don't exactly, but you can always go back and change the numbers before you fully paid. So if anything, make sure you're putting the cost of the flight and the hotel, or flights and hotels, that you put. So your first deposit date's going to ask you when you made that first deposit. I'm going to say today because that's what day it is. So let's say I booked my trip today. I made my first payment, which whether it's full or half. Payments left, right? We're going to say no, the trip is paid in full. If you have payments left, let's click to see what they say, right? Yes. Okay. So it just wants to be aware. Because remember, your travel insurance, from when you set it and the dates that you put, it pretty much starts from the minute that you acquire travel insurance, and then it's like in full effect when your trip goes on. Because let's say I book my travel insurance today and something happens between today and before I leave on my trip, right? Technically, depending on the stipulations and information, or what it covers, that might help me. But then again, it may not. It's all in what's in your policy. So we're going to search for our results and we're going to see what it brings up, right? So it's telling you the traveler's age. If there's multiple people, it will list all your ages. These are the travel dates. This is how much the trip supposedly costs. Or how much you're saying the trip costs, right? Because let's say your trip costs $5,000, but you don't want to spend $100 for your insurance, and you say your trip costs $500. Now maybe your insurance is like $20, right? So this is how much you're saying you paid for the trip, which is potentially the max in certain situations that you can be refunded. Deposit date, right? This is saying that I initially made my first payment towards my trip on this date. So even if you, let's say you booked something last week and then today you're deciding to get insurance, that's totally fine. Still put the day of the purchase, because when it comes time to filing a claim, on the policy, let's say you're trying to get money back, let's say, something happened that is in the policy and you need the travel insurance to handle it or check, they know the date that it was purchased, so they can go back and say, hey, look, Ellie actually made a payment on this day, for this trip, and it'll be easier to kind of go through the information. And also, if you forget, it's in the system, so it'll be also easier, helpful for you to remember when you made the payment or when you started making payments. So here they're telling us, right, we understand travelers are concerned about COVID-19 pandemic. Cancellation and medical benefits may still be available for travelers who contract the virus or are quarantined. For other COVID-related concerns, such as border closures or travel restrictions, we recommend cancel for any reason, right? So cancel for any reason is an option in the policy. So they're saying they recommend that you get a coverage that has that. If you are searching for a policy for COVID-19, please apply the coronavirus pandemic search filter to show policies that may provide coverage. This is something that I love about this search system, because you can select what you want your insurance to have. And it'll help to filter out the ones that do have it and the ones that don't, right? So we can easily come here and say cancel for COVID-19 sickness, right? That's what we want to filter. So we had 42 from a total of 92 policies, right? And now it's bringing up anything that has COVID-19 cancellation covered, right? COVID-19 medical not covered. So this lets you know that you might not want that, because in the event you need medical attention, you want that covered. We don't know how these fees are going to be outside the country. You never want to go and just say, oh, I'll thug it out, or, I'll figure it out. No. We want to know that we're going to be covered. So COVID-19 cancellation covered, COVID-19 medical cover, that is great, right? So we can check that, and so we can actually compare that policy to other policies. So if we go here, right, most popular filters, so let's check off what we want. We want the coronavirus pandemic here, the cancel for any reason that they mentioned, right? So let's select that too. So now what's going to happen is it's going to populate the ones that have things that we want covered so that it can give us. So for whatever reason, a policy that has both does not exist, right? Okay, so let's take off the coronavirus pandemic and let's see cancel for any reason. Wow, so they don't have cancel for any reason. So this is something that's really interesting that I did not see when I first was booking my trip, but that can easily be because at this point you can just say, oh, well, I started catching symptoms and so I want to cancel. And I think they are trying to minimize people just coming up with any excuse to cancel a trip last minute or just losing out on money because they don't want you to cancel a trip. And now there's so many things that can cause you to cancel a trip. A lot of airlines are canceling flights back to back, so imagine 100 people on one flight, having to call the insurance and then being pushed to another flight, and other people are just being pushed off. But this was happening a lot. As you can see, a number of airlines were doing this over Christmas break, even in the fall, in the summer. So just imagine hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands really, all at the same time just canceling for any reason at this point, because we don't care if it's trip delay, disruption, COVID. It's like, look, I have an issue, and that can be a big problem, especially financially. So I can see why that is not coming up anymore. So let's go back to the coronavirus pandemic and let's see. Okay, cool. So it did bring us some. So we do have the one that we compared here. Let's say trip interruption is good, right? And they also give you information on, what all this means. And I think that's what I really love about this, right? You just hover and it'll tell you. So let's hover. So coronavirus pandemic, use this filter to view policies that provide trip cancellation, cancel for any reason, or emergency medical benefits for the coronavirus pandemic. So that's kind of cool that the cancel for any reason is actually tied into the coronavirus pandemic, which is probably why it wasn't showing up separately, because now they're attaching it to specific issues. Trip cancellation policies provide cancellation and interruption benefits if a traveler contracts the coronavirus or is quarantined, which is good, right? Because some countries are allowing you to kind of quarantine for free at no additional cost, and some are having you pay for the extra days that you are staying. I've been hearing both information, different countries. So this insurance, no matter where you end up, is going to be helpful. The availability of cancel for any reason is time sensitive based on your deposit date. If your policy includes this benefit, it will be listed on the policy detail. That's super important to know, that the cancel for any reason is sensitive based on your deposit date. So make sure that you go back in before, and you read the full policy detail, right? And so we're going to do that after we kind of put together some stuff. So trip delay, it provides coverage for reimbursed for your meals, lodging, local transportation if you're delayed by any airline or common carrier. I love this because there's so many reasons why your flight can get delayed. Just like we said, right? Airlines were canceling just left and right. Right. Think about it. When the pandemic happened, a lot of routes are not the same anymore, right? You're not getting as much direct flights from certain cities. Sometimes the number of planes that airline has is reduced. And what's happening a lot, which I'm noticing, is overbooking of flight seats, kind of hoping people aren't going to show up. They're banking that people are going to cancel last minute, that people are going to test positive, that people are going to be late, right? But being late and just, missing your flight, those are things that happen. So they're already kind of saying, like, based off of their stats, they're used to a certain number of people missing the flight. But with COVID, the uncertainty is high, so they want to kind of guarantee that they're going to have a packed flight. So they're really overbooking now. And we're seeing that time and time again. People are saying, oh, I got kicked out my seat. Or airlines are like, hey, who wants to take a voucher so that, someone else can take your seat? And this is where this will come into play, because now, you have an interruption. You even though you willingly gave up your seat, you still gave up your seat. So make sure to read in the clause, the wording, the language, to make sure that those situations can still be covered. Even though the airline is paying you, you can still get money from the travel insurance, because this is still a disruption. right? Because you didn't really come in intending to be here a few more days. But if you do get bumped off, because I know individuals who got forcibly bumped off, or the plane is delayed and you're forced to stay, or something unexpected happens, this can definitely come into play. So look at these policies. This is $16, right? This is really good. $17. These things have what you want. But look, cancellation 1,000, right? That's the most that you can get. Interruption 1,000. Medical evacuation 150,000, right? Right here, cancellation 1,000. Interruption 1,500. So what does that mean? You can get up to 1,500 off of this policy if you pay $1 extra. Now, if you're being cheap and you're like, well, I want to save that dollar, right? I'd rather not spend it. Okay, that's cool. But in the event something happens and you could have gotten an extra $500 and all it was going to do was cost you an extra dollar, this may have been the better option, right? But at the same time, we need to go back in and see the full information in detail. So you can go into here, right? Pre-existing medical history. This is something that's important. Hurricane and weather. A lot of insurance do not cover hurricane and weather, natural disasters, right? And this is something that can happen at any moment, at any time, and that's kind of scary. So the fact that the ones we picked are still here, that's kind of good. We can see our policies went down from 40, from 92, from 42, so 2 got knocked off. So this is really good, right? Medical evacuation, the cost here is going up. We're paying about $19. So you can just pretty much select different policies and really just go and see. So you have cruise options. It's just so many different things. Cancel for work reasons, cancel for any reason, cancel for medical. So let's click that cancel for any and let's see if it still shows up anything, because this is still now a different section. Okay, so it's still pretty much doing the same thing. Let's see cancel for work reasons, because this is something that can happen. Your job last minute is like, hey, we need you, and you love your job so much that you decide you're going to cancel your trip that you've been waiting months for, right? And then boom. So that option actually is here, right? Our policy numbers that come up out of 92, you have 14, right? You have 14 that fit. We still have this one here. The other ones are gone, which means it didn't have cancel for work reasons. So these policies go up, right? We don't really see the numbers reflecting much, but let's just click them. We're just going to click some random ones at this point, and we're going to see $1 million medical evacuation. Woo. Let's see, right? But you're also paying more. So if you wanted to pay less, let's stay in this area. It's still good, right? We're hoping that nothing. So I actually purchased April last time, which is why I'm saying buy again. Because that ended up being the best one for what I needed covered, what I wanted covered, and what I was thinking like, okay, this is what we need. And then price range, right? I was comparing, it came down to about 3 different policies, and the one that made the most sense for coverage, price, and how much we could be funded back based off of how much we spent and stuff like that, that was the one that worked the best for me for my last trip. So now it brings you to this page, right? And here is where you are able to compare the different policies. So it's giving us the price, right? Least to the most, which is awesome. And now what we're going to do is now that we know which one costs more, right? You can easily X them out and just say, okay, this doesn't fit. So it's literally row by row matching up all the information. So these all include trip cancellation and interruption, right? For coronavirus cancellation, perfect. Coronavirus medical, it all includes that, which is great, right? That is what we were looking for. That is one of the things we checked out. Trip interruption was something we wanted, and they all cover up to 150%, which was 1,500. Why? Because we said that our trip cost was 1,000, so they're willing to give us $500 more on top of what we spent. So if your trip was more, you would get more, right? Now you have travel delayed $200 or more. Let's see, $1,000 per person, $200 daily limit covered after 5-hour delay. So what does that mean? Your flight is supposed to depart at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but now you get a notification at 4:30 and it's telling you, our flight is going to be delayed for 4 hours, right? Your flight is going to be in the next 4 hours. Well, you're not going to be able to get covered because it doesn't reach their hour delay. So now if it's delayed after 5 hours, right? 5 hours and 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. Now you can get paid for this one. For these, you have to be 6 hours or more. So right now, for the cost and for the fact that it has least amount of hours of delay, right? You're more likely going to be able to get covered. Now for that 1 hour difference, right? If it does hit 6, right? Or you're looking for a policy that can pay you a little bit more, this one gives you the most per person, but it gives you one of the least per day, right? And so you don't really know how many days this is going to affect you, or what that can really be like. So right now, from what I'm seeing, I would still go with this. Just because you're spending a little less, the chances of your flight being delayed more than 5 hours, it's possible, but 5 hours is still a lot. If it was 2 or 3, I think that's a little bit common. Or a little bit more like, okay, that is more likely to happen, right? But right now we can still say they're all roughly the same. However, you're going to reach 5 hours before 6, right? And the pricing is cheaper. Now we have hurricane and weather. Common carrier delay for any length of time, accommodation made uninhabitable must be purchased before storm is named. So this is great, right? If you have this insurance and then it's hurricane season and you book it today and tomorrow they're like, Hurricane Mary is heading our way, and then Hurricane Mary causes some type of issue or delay or disruption in your trip, you're covered. Awesome, right? So that's the fact, right? Must be purchased before your storm is named. So you can purchase travel insurance at any time, but if Hurricane Mary is announced right now and then you book this travel insurance right now, you will not get that coverage for anything that's going to affect you towards that trip. Common carrier delay for any length, mandatory evacuation conditionally covered, accommodation made uninhabitable conditionally covered, must be purchased before storm is named, right? So the fact that these two have evacuation covered, that's good. If you are able to keep up with the weather and it's not hurricane season, you might not really need the evacuation stuff, right? Hurricanes normally only come around hurricane season. And so if it's hurricane season and there's a lot of talks about bad storms, or you're really worried, get a policy that may have that, especially if they're talking about, potentially something that can be damaging. Common carrier delay for 24 hours. So these have any length of time, which is great. These two, these have delay for 24 hours. You might not have a 24-hour delay. So right now it's looking like the first two may be a little bit better, but the more you know about the situation you may be going into, and what may be at play, you might lean towards the other two for different reasons. Okay. So cancel for work, included in trip cancellation and trip interruption. So the great thing about this is you can click it and it will give you more information, right? It can give you more information so you can understand what is really covered. So benefits will be provided for losses incurred by you for a covered trip cancellation up to the date and time of departure, or interrupted or delayed after the time and date of departure. A maximum benefit of up to the amount indicated in the schedule of benefits to cover certain expenses as listed below, which result in cancellation or interruption of your trip due to any of the following unforeseen events, right? You or a traveling companion are required to work during his or her scheduled trip, right? You must provide proof of requirement to work. You or your companion are directly involved in a merger, acquisition, government required product recall, or bankruptcy proceeding, and you must be currently employed by the company involved. You or a traveling companion's company is deemed to be unsuitable for business due to burglary, blah, 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 right? So if you or the people you're traveling with that are listed on the policy, right, if this applies for you guys, right, and this is going to affect your trip, this will help you to cancel for any reason. So for cancel for work reasons, right, they're basing it off of trip interruption. So pretty much these things, right? Trip interruption, that cost, that's how much you can make. So you're covered for 100% of your trip cost. This benefit is separate from trip cancellation and employment layoff, right? Included in trip cancellation and trip interruption. So same thing as the cost up there, covered if you're purchased, if it's purchased by the 11th. Okay, cool. So they have a purchase by date. So now you can go to ratings, right? We have different ratings here that can help you decide, how other people feel about the policy. That might, take into account what you decide is best for you. Trending benefits, right? These are benefits that people are usually looking for. And these were the things that we were actually looking for that our policy does cover. So that's kind of good to know. And then we have here the cancellation types and the amount that you're covered and stuff like that. So we have the cancel for COVID-19 relief, we have the trip cancellation, trip interruption, hurricane and weather, terrorism, financial default, covered after 14-day wait if purchased by, no coverage, covered, right? 14-day wait for all of these. So what does this? Financial default can reimburse a traveler's trip costs if they need to cancel because of a complete suspension of operations by their travel supplier due to financial circumstances, whether or not bankruptcy is filed. So this is kind of interesting, right? This is almost saying, I thought I'd have the money for the trip, but I don't, right? So this you may need to get more information, figure out, the proper wording or situation or circumstances where this can be covered. But this can be super helpful, right? Employment layoff. If you get laid off, covered if employed for one continuous year, this can help, right? Sometimes you just want to go on a trip, something happens, you get laid off, the insurance will cover it. So these are a lot of things that people don't know travel insurance can cover, right? It's going further than just, like I said, your bag being late, a trip interruption, missing your flight, a medical, right? It's going into the fact that you may not have enough money, that you get fired, that your boss is requiring you to work, right? Pre-existing conditions, if you need to go to the hospital. This is pretty good. So you can click through and really read what you need covered. So if we go back here, we have the travel delay, baggage delay. Baggage delay is super, super important. And sometimes for me, this is a make or break section. I went on a trip one time, didn't have my bag for 5 days, guys. 5 days. And lo and behold, at that time, I didn't fully understand I didn't really understand. I knew I had a policy, but I didn't understand how much I could benefit from, and I didn't look at it beforehand. So had I been able to look at it, I could have had a really free trip. Now, granted, they did give me money back. They did give me money for 2 different situations, basically not having my bag. And I think another incident I had with them on that same flight. However, I really could have made enough money back to pay my own trip, and I was going to be traveling for a month at that point. This is back when I was backpacking or traveling through East Africa. So knowing what your policy is or how it can work in your benefit, and if this situation arises, is so important, because I had no clothes, guys. I packed so poorly. I didn't even have my medicine. I didn't have my malaria meds. I didn't have anything. It was really sad. Fortunate I was meeting my sister, and so I was able to use her stuff, and I was able to get a few things that I needed. But thank God we were the same size. I only had the clothes on my back. I normally pack an extra outfit in my bag, right? These little things that I normally do that the one time I didn't do was so crucial. So this section is super, super important, okay? Don't skip it over. So we're going to read this together. Trip delay, $1,000 per person, $200 daily limit covered after 5-hour delay. We read that earlier, right? So this is 1,000, 2,000, 1,000, right? But this is also by daily and the max per person. 5-hour delay, 6-hour delay. This is for travel. Baggage, right? Covered after 24 hours. I didn't have my bag for 5 days. So they gave 200 a person, 300, 500. So I don't remember what my policy was, but I definitely got 500 for my bag, cash to my account. And then I got a little extra on top of that. So, and that was me not understanding my full policy to get way more, right? Because it was terrible, guys, but that's for another video. So baggage and personal items lost. So this is important. I've had stuff stolen out my travel bag before. And I never ended up getting it back. I didn't get, my money back for it either or anything. I did have a policy. It was just a crazy mess. Anywho, this is super, super important because it doesn't matter how small or big this item is, it's going to piss you off. And nothing is going to replace exactly what you had, but depending what it is and depending the cost, you're going to wish you had a policy that will cover it, right? Certain things are not replaceable because they're not things that you can just buy anywhere. But having this policy in place can help you reimburse, right? This is how I see it. You're paying insurance for that situation of in the event something happens, right? So a lot of times you're just paying insurance, paying insurance, paying insurance. So if a situation arises, you paid for this coverage, and the policy that you have covers these things. So report it, and whatever they give you, cool. Move on from it. So if you have a policy and it covers this, and you lost your bag, report it and get your money back. Go buy yourself something new. Go buy yourself a new trip, a new flight to make you feel better, whatever the case is, right? So $1,000 per person, 500 first item limit, 250 subsequent items limit, $500 specific items limit. They're gonna have you fill out a list of everything that was in that bag, right? Or that was stolen, whatever, when it becomes lost. So knowing the pricing is super important. So if you have valuable things, or you buy expensive clothes, you're gonna want a policy that can cover an item that's in there that goes missing. Misconnection. This is important. 500 per person, covered after 3-hour delay. 500 per person, covered after 3-hour delay, cruise and tour only, right? So this wouldn't apply for you for a flight. 500 per person, covered after 3-hour delay, cruise and tour only, wouldn't apply. So this first one would apply. 3-hour delay is possible. Sometimes it's a little less. However, this is something that happens a lot, and almost happened to me one too many times on one trip recently. And that's because a lot of airlines, sometimes I think they're not really matching up. If you buy a multi-ticket, sometimes they're not really paying attention to how close your flight is, and some airlines aren't going to wait, right? We know airlines get charged for how long they're at the gate when they're supposed to leave. If they come back, they can get charged. A lot of different policies that make them leave on time. So unless the whole flight is empty, they're more than likely not going to wait for you to catch your connecting flight. And if you're running late, whatever the case is, you're going to need that. So misconnection can reimburse the additional cost for a traveler to catch up to their trip if they miss their departure for a covered reason. If while on the trip you miss a trip departure resulting from cancellation or delay at least the number of consecutive hours shown in the schedule, right? So that means that they kind of have to cause the connection missing. So for me, in my situation, I didn't have to report it because luckily I did catch the flight, and I was one of the whole flight, half the flight, who almost missed it. However, in that circumstance, I really wonder how it'll come into play. So sometimes calling up the company and really asking specific questions, scenarios, even if it's a real situation, sometimes I'll call and I'll ask before I file, just because I want to make sure if it's even worth filing, or just understanding what the situation needs to look like to see if this will be covered. And so the more situations you've encountered, or you understand like, oh, this can happen, and you are able to ask them like, okay, if this happened, is that covered? It will help you understand if you are getting the right coverage, or if what the circumstance or situation that may happen is just something that they don't cover. But remember, they do have cancel for any reason, trip cancellation, trip interruption. So it can still fall under those policies, even if it doesn't exactly fall under misconnection here, right? So you have accidental death, you have sports, other benefits, right? Rental car damage, no coverage. Not selected, you have to upgrade to get that. Not selected, have to upgrade, then no coverage. So this is really cool because your car rental can be covered through here. However, if you did rent a car, you probably have insurance through that car company. However, if you do have these two insurance, technically if something happens, you can file the claim under both policies. So that also might be in your benefit If the policy and price is something that you're already going to purchase and it comes with this, it can be a bonus, because I have filed one incident, two policies, and got reimbursed on both, right? Money back guarantee, free look up to 10 days after purchase. So this is kind of cool, right? Period. When a traveler can decide if the policy they purchase is right for them and cancel for a full refund. So what is this saying? You purchase a policy and now you're saying this policy isn't good for me. I found something better. I don't want it anymore. I don't need it anymore. Maybe your credit card has travel insurance that covers everything that you need. You want to cancel and get your money back, right? You have 10 days, you have 14 days. These don't cover. You'll just lose out. But at that point, don't cancel. Just keep the policy. 24-hour assistance service. So this is good. You have someone who can help you if you need assistance filing a policy claim, or if you have questions. Identity theft, these aren't covered. This is covered. A lot of credit card companies do come with identity theft coverage and different things like that. So make sure you're able to read and see what it does and different things. So this is really cool. So let's say after all this, we're like, okay, cool. These are all very similar. Everything that I want covered is there. I think I'll be okay. I don't want to spend two more. You want this one? Cool. You're just going to click it. You're going to continue to hit purchase. You're going to fill out your information, and it's basically going to just send you an email, and you can log in at any point, and your policy will be there, right? So let's say you also don't like any of these policies and you just want to kind of go back to the beginning, right? You want to just continue back your search. You can X them all out. You can go back. Remember, we had favored some. You can do that, save it. And the great thing is that when you are booking your next trip and you log in, all the information that you have will be saved. The policy you used is there. So if you want to use the same policy again, you can. And I think that's something that's really great. Makes it super easy for you to find. You know what's already covered in there. You can just double check, okay, these are already there, or you already know everything you need is covered. The only thing is that maybe how much you can get back is going to be more, for the simple fact that your policy may cost more. So let's go and do 3,000, right? If we update for 3,000, let's see what it's going to show us. We can also filter by price. So as you can see, the policies already went up. Why? Because the cost of our trip is more. And so our cancellation cost is more. Our interruption cost is more. So that means that if something happens, we can be refunded the full amount of our trip. So just understand that the total cost of your trip is what's going to make or break it. If you don't want to spend a lot and you're willing to gamble on how much you can get back, then put a lower price to at least have some basic coverage, right? To at least have COVID coverage if that's your main concern, or just having the travel insurance because the country is requiring that for you, and then you do get those other basic coverages. That's totally fine. The only thing you'll potentially miss out on is if you need full reimbursement for your trip, then you kind of lose out on that. But as far as getting covered for other things, you will still be able to get that coverage. So I hope this helps you to, understand how to find travel insurance, how to compare, how to make sure you have that COVID insurance protection, cancel for any reason, trip interruption, baggage delay, so on and so forth. And I hope that you definitely, continue to get travel insurance from this next trip that you have to every single one you take moving on, because it's super, super important. You're going to need it and you can use it. And with the way things are changing and travel just being so confusing and just changing every day, this is going to come in handy, I promise you. So thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you in my